Good evening again, my powerful MVP family. This is your girl, Miss Beth, with another evening reflections. So, for today, April 1st, I first want to talk about condolences to Usain Bolt, whose father has passed, sleeping peacefully this day. One lot of kind words said about him, with support for his son, and who he was as a human being. They said he was a happy man and he was the strength of his family. We're hoping that more people can say that when people are gone. You're going to knock that over. The next we want to talk about is, Jamaica is always in the news, always the killings and the killings. So we know that there were people who have passed away, but tonight I want to talk about two things more after this one with this man from Trelawney. He's a businessman, a delivery man, and who went to Brownstown on March 26th. It was earlier this week. He went to Brownstown and he went to the Scotiabank there in Brownstown. He withdrew $650,000 to do some transactions, and when he left the bank, he placed the money in a brown bag pack. He said once he did that, he drove over to the Quartz store in Draxhall, and he was in there for about maybe 20 minutes, and when he returned to his car, he saw the back window was broken and the bag pack was gone. So I don't know how many of you, just like myself, went straight to another situation, like I've always said, when tellers are allowed to work with their phones in these institutions that handle money, how easy it is for them to contact their buddies to let them know and also identify the people who have withdrawn huge sums of money. And then for these people to be tracked and a little bit taken away from them. It's just unrealistic for me to think that somebody withdrew that large sum of money and left and went over to another space, and just like that somebody sniffed him out and said, yeah, he has money on him. Just like that. So the other theory that I would have had is, unless the money he withdrew was not his money, and in trying to con somebody out of that money, he said he was robbed. Well, why would he do that? But as I said, as you go forth, guys, from day to day, and you enter these bank places, as I said, I just pay on my card the little that I have to do what needs to be done. I just pay with my card. That's why I only go into town when it's necessary once a month or so. You just go online and do what you have to do. As I said, you have business to take care of. If it's materials to be bought to build something or whatever, hardware stores take cards. If you're hiring workmen, make sure they have a bank account that you can just transfer monies to. It is hard in Jamaica these days to do business. I know a lot of people are getting through with this when they have other people around them. But by yourself, guys, it's not encourageable. It is not a feel-good moment to think that, oh, you have and you can afford to do. And so you know, it is quite interesting in Jamaica now, because people just feel like people shouldn't have anything. People just sit back and wait so they can just come and take. And so I'm just saying to us, be careful. I mean, we have to say to all of us, because it's tough here in Jamaica now. Another thing I want to bring up is that we talk about utilities. We talk about utilities in Jamaica, and you know, we know how already we see how high the bills can get. And one of the problems, and this is not just now, it's been for a while, one of the problems is that when you find people sitting out there and refuse to pay for services, and yet they're running more things on their stolen energy than you who are paying for the service. You paying for it, you're watching like, oh my God, it's gonna be too much. And while they're stealing the services, and they don't care. They're not just stealing it and say, boy, just let me get like a light for the house and run just one fridge. Let me run one fridge and one light. No, they're running their ACs, they're running, and they're eating up the utilities, and then it is left on our backs to pay it. So, we have the Director General of the Hour, which means Office of Utilities Regulation, Ansad Hewitt, has reaffirmed the agency's strong support for utility companies as they combat criminal activities targeting their infrastructure. Speaking at the Office of Utilities Regulation, he said that society as a whole is suffering when criminals attack the utility networks, whether it's Flow or Digicel or the light and power or the water. It is hard, because those of us who are paying, it makes our bills doubled and tripled in order to offset what is being stolen. So he says, as I've done in the past, I want to use the occasion to signal our unequivocal support for the strongest legal measures feasible against any kind of criminal encroachment on the network and services of regulated public utilities. He says the reality is that where such incidents take place, it is not just the utilities that are victims, but the entire society suffers. He said we cannot afford to ignore or be silent about such nefarious activities. He said the Jamaica Public Service, the National Water Commission, Digicel, Flow, and other utility companies have consistently reported significant financial losses due to theft. Electricity and water theft cost JPS and NWC, the National Water Commission, respectively millions annually, leading to what? Higher bills for paying customers and reduced service quality. Something has to be done. Something has to be done because some people have no conscience. It's one thing they cannot afford and they're stealing it. They're stealing it. But they run all sort of stuff on it. Well, you who has a meter, who have legally put these things for your use, for your comfort, for, for whatever the reason, then we end up have to be paying so much more. And while people are out there living it up, leave lights on, burning all day, because guess what? It's not costing them a thing. They don't care. So now it says for the telecommunications providers, Digicel and Flow have also suffered substantial losses, reporting tens of millions in damages due to vandalism and theft in 2025 alone. Millions already in 2025. We just reached April. On March 4, vandals deliberately destroyed underground fiber cables, leaving thousands without landline, mobile, and internet services. The cost of repairs ran into millions of dollars. How can we be better? How can we be better as a whole? When, sometimes you sit here, you're trying to support those who are in need. And sometimes things like these, when I look at these reports in the Gleaner, I'm looking like, sometimes you wonder if you should really be helping these people here in Jamaica, because the things that they do, and instead of the country become better so everybody can eat a bread, when you have people out there damaging things, all this money, I'm not saying that these big companies are not making so much and give back so little to the workers. I'm not saying it's not so, that they do. But at the end of the day, when you look, when you're stealing and damaging and doing this, it's not hurting them, because they're throwing it back on consumers, paying customers. So that's not, if you're trying to hurt them, that's not how you hurt people. You hurt these big people, because it doesn't bother them, because they're thinking, well, now we have to raise our cable services. Now we have to raise our Wi-Fi. That's all they look at. So when you sit out there and say, yeah, we have to get some of what them and do them, pay the people them so little, and so, you're not doing anybody anything, because you're only hurting the paying consumers. So it just not making sense. It says, indeed, we are privy to figures from one telecoms operator indicating that from 2020 to 2025, the cost of dealing with damage from theft and vandalism amounts to well over 100 billion Jamaican dollars. Island Network, another telecoms provider, has reported that over the years, about 30 of its sites were broken into and vandalized, including the theft of batteries that each cost about $500,000 to replace. So they're going to replace them. But on whose shoulder? They're going to replace these batteries. But believe me, somebody going to have to pay for it. So with lessons learned from Hurricane Beryl, which, caused 32 billion Jamaican dollars in damage in Jamaica, including crippling 40% of the island's mobile network, the Office of Utilities. What are they again? Office of Utility. I'll tell you who they are. Our Office of Utility Regulations. Yes. Office of Utilities Regulations. They are saying that right, they're saying that they're now collaborating with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management to develop protocols that facilitate the temporary use of telecommunications facilities for relief efforts in areas with limited or no service. People, let us think. We're just doing things and we're not thinking. So let us think, before we get out there and think that we are hurting anyone but our own. If I could have given my neighbor a little plate of dinner, when my bills are so sky high, I have to be cautious. I have to be careful with the little that I have, And so people must think, we take the light and we waste, we vandalize, and we do the things that we do, and we're not thinking that we're not just hurting ourselves, but we are hurting, mediocre income people, retired people. We're hurting others as well who don't deserve it. This last thing I want you to leave a comment on. I want you to tell me if it's me, if it's just me, or if does this help me make it make sense, because I saw this thing popped up, and this happened 20 hours ago, which was yesterday, that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security provided 1.1 million Jamaican dollars to aid family with hearing devices. $1.1 million. And I have to question, why? Maybe it's just me, people, but tell me what you think about this. We think this was necessary? Or is there some underlying thing here where so many children are needing support, but they picked up 1.1 million to provide hearing aids? You're telling me that there are no hearing aids that cost less? Why 1.1 million? Why 1.1 million of Jamaican taxpayers' money went as a gift to this family to buy these special hearing aids when the struggles in this country are so real, when classrooms need support to help teach the children so they can help to replenish the fleeing workforce people, the professionals who are fleeing out of the country. 1.1 million gifted to Felicia Graham and her daughter Azalea Walker. These people are the beneficiaries of the provision, the largest ever granted by the ministry for this purpose. What is the connection there? Because this doesn't even make sense. Pernell Charles, the portfolio minister, Pernell Charles Jr., presented a check in the sum of $1.1 million during a brief handover ceremony at the ministry's North Street office in Kingston on March 27th, just a couple of days ago. The recommended devices are the state of the art Widex MRR4D rechargeable digital hearing aids. They were selected for their exceptional quality and effectiveness in assisting persons with profound hearing loss. Graham, a devoted single mother, has faced insurmountable challenges raising her daughter, who attends the Lister Mere Gilby High School for the Deaf in Kingston. Both have suffered from profound hearing loss, a condition they have silently endured since 2018 due to the malfunctioning of their previous hearing aids. So they had hearing aids before. But why these? Why this amount? A lot of times when you pay these kinds of monies, we know more than half of the money is just for the name brand. So you're telling me they couldn't find something cheaper that was still doable? There are other people with hearing loss. Some of them haven't even gotten a chance to get a hearing aid. Not even a cheap one. They can't afford even a cheap one. But you give one family $1.1 million. But this is Jamaica, right? Jamaica, no problem, man. Jamaica, we make a lot of sense, man. Jamaica, who you know, and who you know, who know you, man. Jamaica. This is Jamaica. $1.1 million to go to a company to provide hearing aids for two people when there's so much more needs in this country. There's so much more that nobody sees, nobody supports, nobody gives a rat's behind about. And we wonder why. We wonder why. We sit and we wonder why so much stuff go on in Jamaica. We wonder why.